I lost my home. I did not lose my voice. The pain survived. The book survived. The truth survived. Your responsibility does not end with reading. It begins there. Its history of literature, social reform, and resistance to injustice, not as nostalgia. Your book gave me courage to speak when everyone around me was silent. That single letter carried more power than any threat I faced. Honorable organizers of the Kerala Legislature International Book Festival, distinguished guests, dear friends and fellow lovers of books. It is a deep joy and an honor to stand here in Trivandrum, the cultural heart of Kerala, a land where literacy, learning, and liberty have long walked side by side. This is a place that carries its history of literature, social reform, and resistance to injustice, not as nostalgia, but as living memory and practice. Kerala has shown the world that ideas matter, that thought matters, that courage matters. From Sri Narayana Guru, who shattered the moral legitimacy of caste oppression, to Ayan Kali, who fought so that the marginalized could walk with dignity, to EMS Nambudripad, who translated reformist ideas into democratic governance. Kerala has repeatedly shown that progress is not accidental, it is a choice. There are also quieter acts of defiance, less visible but no less powerful. Nangeli's refusal to submit to an inhuman tax on women's bodies reminds us that oppression often survives because it disguises itself as tradition. Thinkers like Chattempi, Swamikal, and Shadaran Ayappan insisted on reason over superstition, inquiry over blind belief, humanity over dogma. And then there are Kerala's writers, Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, who gave dignity to ordinary lives, Thakazi Shivashankar Pillai, who wrote the social conscience of this land, Kumaran Asan, whose poetry fused compassion with reform. Their words did not merely entertain, they questioned power, challenged injustice, and transformed society. Kerala is not just a place on the map. Kerala is an idea of progress, an idea of equality, an idea of humanism. This land has long believed that a thinking society is a free society, and that books are not luxuries, but necessities. My topic of discussion today is books for peace. What kind of peace are we talking about? Because peace is one of the most abused words in human history, very often peace is presented as calmness, as quiet, as the absence of disturbance. But calmness is not always peace. Silence is not always harmony, and order is not always justice. Books for peace are often described as literature that promotes harmony, conflict resolution, and tranquility, both at the personal level and at the level of societies and nations. That description is correct, but it is incomplete. Because peace, like truth, changes meaning depending on who defines it and who benefits from that definition. Let us begin with the idea of individual or inner peace, which is very popular today. Many books promise serenity, balance, emotional healing, and fulfillment. They speak of managing anxiety, coping with trauma, surviving grief, and finding calm in an increasingly chaotic world. There is nothing wrong with this. A person broken by fear or despair cannot easily fight injustice. Emotional well-being matters. Some of these books draw from psychology, some from philosophy, some from spirituality or religion. They speak of acceptance, mindfulness, forgiveness, and authenticity. At their best, such books help individuals reclaim control over their own minds. They help people breathe again. But we must be careful. Inner peace that demands silence in the face of injustice is not peace. It is moral withdrawal. Spirituality that teaches acceptance of cruelty is not wisdom. It is submission. Self-help that tells the oppressed to adjust to oppression is not healing. It is harm. So yes, inner peace matters, but inner peace cannot be detached from moral responsibilities. A calm mind that ignores suffering around it is not enlightened. It is insulated. Now let us turn to global and societal peace. Here, books for peace often focus on war, violence, diplomacy, and conflict resolution. They analyze the causes of war, the failures of international systems, and the fragile efforts at reconciliation. They discuss treaties, borders, ideologies, nationalism, and power. They ask important questions. Why do nations go to war? Why does violence repeat itself? Can international law restrain brutality? Can diplomacy overcome hatred? Some books explore political and social philosophy, examining how societies have attempted successfully or disastrously to build peace through institutions, constitutions, and cultural reform. Others focus on peace education, the idea that values such as empathy, pluralism, and mutual respect must be taught, not assumed. All of this is important, but again, we must ask, peace for whom? History is full of peaceful societies built on slavery, stable systems built on patriarchy, orderly cultures built on religious terror. When books speak of peace without confronting power, hierarchy, and violence, especially religious and cultural violence, they lie by omission. A society where women are controlled, silenced, or punished in the name of religion may look peaceful on the surface. There may be no visible war, no explosions, no headlines, but that peace is a graveyard peace enforced by fear. Books for peace must therefore do more than promote harmony. They must name cruelty. They must expose false sanctity. They must challenge traditions that demand obedience instead of justice. And this is where books become dangerous. Real peace is not about avoiding conflict, but confronting its causes. It is about asking why certain beliefs require violence to survive, why some gods demand silence from women, why dissent is called blasphemy, why obedience is praised more than compassion. Books for peace do not anesthetize us. They wake us up. They tell us that peace without equality is a lie, that peace without freedom is a prison, that peace without reason is superstition disguised as smile. So, when I speak of books for peace, I do not mean books that make us comfortable. I mean books that make injustice uncomfortable. Books that disturb us, books that provoke us, books that force us to choose between silence and courage, between obedience and conscience. Because peace is not found in the absence of noise, peace is found where dignity is non-negotiable. And that kind of peace has always begun with a book. What is peace? We often speak of peace as silence, calmness, or stability. But silence can be the silence of fear. Stability can be the stability of chains. Calmness can be the calmness of oppression. Dictatorship are often silent. Oppression is often orderly. Fear rarely makes noise. True peace is not passive. It is not decorative. It is not convenient. True peace cannot exist where injustice thrives, where oppression, misogyny, religious fundamentalism, or censorship rule. A society cannot call itself peaceful if women live in fear. A society cannot call itself peaceful if dissent is punished in the name of God. A society cannot call itself peaceful if people must whisper their thoughts. A silent society is not a peaceful society. A questioning society is. Peace requires courage. The courage to think, to write, to speak, and to challenge what has long been accepted without reason, without evidence, and without compassion. When peace becomes a lie, I do not trust official peace. I do not trust peace certified by committees, peace stamped by institutions, peace polished for ceremonies. Because history has taught us something brutal. The world often reverts power and calls it peace. Henry Kissinger received the Nobel Peace Prize, a man whose policies left countries burning, whose strategies erased villages, whose peace was built on bodies others were forced to count. If that is peace, then peace is a lie. Aung San Suu Kyi was celebrated as a saint of democracy. But when an entire people, the Rohingya, were violently driven from their land, when women were raped, children drowned, homes destroyed, she did not stand with the victims. She stood with the state. She chose power over humanity. Peace that abandons the persecuted is not peace. It is betrayal. Even in Bangladesh, my home, figures celebrated as agents of peace and development are strongly opposed and criticized by many people. Dr. Yunus, praised by global institutions, has aligned himself with religious extremist forces, has empowered forces of division, and has promoted agendas that threaten secularism and the safety of ordinary citizens. When those in power pretend they are bringing progress and their influence hides wrongdoing, the vulnerable pay the price. I will not pretend these are accidents. I will not pretend silence is neutrality. I will not pretend that development without secularism or peace without women's freedom or harmony built with fundamentalists is anything but slow violence. The Nobel Peace Prize does not define peace. Power defines it. And power rarely cares about truth. That is why writers matter. That is why books frighten regimes more than weapons do. Because books do not accept medals. Books do not shake hands with murderers. Books remember. They remember what institutions erase. They name what diplomacy hides. They speak when silence is demanded. Even when governments, committees, and ceremonies claim to honor peace, books and the courage of those who read and write them are the only true witnesses to it. Religious barbarity and the crisis of peace. Let us be honest. One of the gravest threats to peace today is religious fundamentalism. Not faith, but fundamentalism. Not spirituality, but barbarity disguised as holiness. Across cultures and countries, we see belief weaponized against women, against minorities, against free thinkers. We see scriptures used to justify violence, silence, inequality, and submission. We see reason branded as heresy, curiosity as sin, dissent as blasphemy. This is not peace. This is terror in sacred clothing. Religious extremism demands obedience, not morality. It values conformity over conscience. It prefers fear to freedom. And when religion becomes hostile to reason, it becomes hostile to humanity itself. Books stand in direct opposition to this barbarity. That is why extremists fear books. That is why they burn them. That is why they ban them. That is why they threaten writers. Books do not work by magic, they work by engaging the human mind. Books teach us to question authority. They teach us empathy by letting us live lives we would never otherwise live. They teach resistance, not violence, but moral resistance. Every movement for justice begins with words. Every revolution begins with an idea. Every awakening begins with a sentence that refuses to lie. A weapon can kill a person. A book can awaken a civilization. Weapons divide, books connect. Weapons silence, books speak across centuries. Weapons destroy, books create. But we also know that some books liberate, some books imprison. Some books open windows, some books build walls. Some books expand our humanity, some books shrink our souls. Some give you wings, some tie you down. Some teach equality, some teach hatred and violence. From Hitler's Mein Kampf to certain holy books that have been used to justify cruelty, inequality, and the subjugation of women. All books demand responsibility from those who read and write them. I speak about this not as a theory, but as lived experience. My books were banned by government in Bangladesh, and one was banned in West Bengal. Fatwas were issued against me. Religious extremists threatened my life. I was forced into exile by the government of Bangladesh and have never allowed to return. I have now lived in exile for 31 years. My crime was critically examining religion, demanding women's equal rights, and defending the rights of all, including religious minorities. They wanted my silence. Instead, my words traveled farther. I received thousands of letters, messages, and comments from readers across countries, cultures, and generations. People tell me they found courage in my books, that they felt less alone, that something shifted inside them. I remember many years ago one young student writing from another country, "Your book gave me courage to speak when everyone around me was silent." That single letter carried more power than any threat I faced. In my books, if my books were dangerous, they were dangerous only to intolerance, not to peace. I lost my home. I did not lose my voice. The pen survived. The book survived. The truth survived. Today, threats to peace are often less visible, but no less dangerous. Digital echo chambers replace empathy with conformity. Algorithms reward outrage, not understanding. People stop listening and start shouting. Climate crisis displaces millions, testing our compassion. Inequality erodes solidarity. Fear replaces responsibility. In such times, books slow us down. But in that pause, we find thought, reflection, and understanding. A society that stops reading deeply slowly forgets how to think deeply. Readers have responsibilities. Writers write peace. Readers must read it. Readers must refuse blind belief. They must analyze, argue, doubt, and think. Here in Kerala, readers shaped history. Libraries became sanctuaries. Literacy became a moral achievement. Your responsibility does not end with reading. It begins there. To the young people here today, your greatest weapon is your mind. Your greatest courage is independence of thought. Do not accept anything simply because it is old. Do not follow anything simply because it is sacred. Actually, nothing is sacred. Do not obey anything simply because it is tradition. Ask questions. Demand evidence. Think for yourself. A society that loses its readers risks losing its future. My final message: words outlive bullets. Ideas travel farther than armies. Libraries are stronger than fortresses. There will always be extremists. There will always be censors. There will always be those who fear truth. But as long as human beings continue to read, to think, and to dream, peace will find a way. Peace begins with a book in a child's hand and courage in an adult's heart. Kerala, you have my love, my respect, and my solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Thasleema, for a wonderfully inspiring talk. I'm here. And I can't argue with you on any of the points that you have made, but I'd like to ask you, quoting your own words, social media engineers how we think nowadays. The algorithms define the kind of prejudices and biases we develop and reinforces them. So how do we get away from that? Because as you rightly say, a book has ideas and we must read, and the youngsters must read books to get those ideas. But as you know, and as we all know, the readership of books is dwindling at an alarming rate, and it's social media which prevails. So what is your answer to that? Thank you.
It is true that people are not reading books nowadays. They use social media a lot. But I think that social media is not that bad. For me, I think it is important because many books of mine were banned by governments, and also publishers are afraid to publish my books, and booksellers are afraid to sell my books. So social media platform is very important for me so that I can convey my messages and people can read me. And but I think that people should also have a habit to read books. That actually I spoke about that. So I wanted to encourage young people to read books, because on social media you will find different kinds of ideas. Even the extremists express their views, and many young people are kind of brainwashed by their words. So I think it is also dangerous. We have to choose whom people should follow and whom they should avoid. But I think that it is the platform that we must not hate or must not ignore. I think people who believe in secularism and people who are free thinkers and people who believe in freedom of expression should use that media positively.
Ma'am, you have been in exile for 31 years. The governments have changed in Bangladesh. Multiple changes have happened. Now another regime has come. Despite that, you have not been able to go back. What is it that needs to change in a society to bring back this kind of a freedom? Is it the government? Is it the policy? Or is it something else?
Yes, of course, government, because my books were banned by government. I was forced to leave my country because government forced me to leave my own country. And when the fundamentalists in my country demanded my execution by hanging, and they issued fatwa, religious edicts, against me, and they put price on my head, and it is illegal in my country, but government did not take any action against those fanatics. Government took action against me, and an arrest warrant was issued against me. So I was forced to leave my country. And if government took action against those fanatics, those jihadis, I think that the country would not have been so bad now. Because, there are lots of bloggers who were secular and who were humanist bloggers, free thinker bloggers were brutally killed by fundamentalists. And government didn't take any action against those fundamentalists or those terrorists. The government spoke against the bloggers, that why should blogger write about something that many people got angry. So it was government who always used religion for their own interest, for their own political interest. They used religion to stay in the power as long as, as possible. And they built lots of religious schools where actually there is no need for those religious schools or madrasas or mosques to make, but the governments think that those fanatics will support the government and government can stay in power for longer time. But instead of building secular schools, instead of building science academies, instead of making people civilized, the government always help people to become more religious and more fanatics. It is I blame government for the situation of the country now. Now the fundamentalists kind of are in power, and Dr. Yunus is supporting the fundamentalists. So I don't know how we will get back this country, this secular country again, because in 1971 we fought against Pakistan to have a secular constitution, and we Hindu, Muslims, Buddhist, Christians, we all were Bengalis, and we created a new nations for us. But now it is divided. Now the extremists, Muslim extremists, are kind of killing and persecuting the religious minority community, and it must be stopped.
Madam, all of us are really proud of you, the pressure that you have undergone, and the books that you have written has been read by so many people like us. I just want to put in your attention another thing, the sufferings that the Indian Muslim women are undergoing. Okay, they might have that freedom outside, but the Sharia laws are totally discriminatory towards women. I would just like to point 1 or 2 points, might be the same thing will be in Bangladesh also. If you have a girl as a child and the father passes away without documenting anything, then the relatives of the girl, like fathers, brothers, children, gets a 1/4 of the property that has been that has been with the father. So that means there is a discrimination towards Muslim women in Sharia laws. And when such questions are arised, the Muslim woman does not have that courage and conviction to fight that. So that's a big problem that we are facing here. So I do not know what is the condition in Bangladesh. So freedom means just not only the freedom for voting, but even in the cultural activities and even in their personal lives also, there has to be that freedom. So that's my question is, how can you convince the Muslim women about it, and what is the situation in Bangladesh about the Sharia law?
I think it is the condition. The situation is the same everywhere in Muslim countries, and also here in Muslim societies who do not want to have laws based on equality and justice. They want religious laws. And I think that all family law or the personal laws, that marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance should be and must be based on equality and justice. And there should be uniform civil code. So in Bangladesh, Hindu women also are the victim of discrimination, because in India, for Hindus, there was a Hindu Act which actually gives kind of equality, ensured women's equality, and but not Hindu women in Bangladesh. They have been suffering. They don't get any property from their fathers, and they don't have the right to divorce their husbands. And Hindu men can marry as many as they want. It is like before 1956, how India was. And in 1956, there was a Hindu Act, and that polygamy was stopped and illegal. And the women are allowed to divorce if they want to divorce their husbands. And they get property from their parents, but which is not the situation among Hindu women in Bangladesh. I don't know about Pakistan, probably the same. But everywhere, Muslim women or non-Muslim women, if there is religious laws, they would suffer. So that there should not be any religious laws for marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance. There should be laws based on equality and justice. Otherwise, Muslim women or any other women, non-Muslim women, they will suffer if there is any religious laws. So we don't want any religious laws. We want civilized laws, laws based on equality between men and women, and also justice.